The morning began like any other in Washington. But by sundown, America would hold its breath. Not because of a foreign missile launch or an economic collapse, though those shadows crept closer, but because of one man's mouth and the match he struck with it. Donald J. Trump, once again center stage, had lit a fire too big to control. The MAGA machine he created, fed, and rode into power was now trembling beneath him. And for the first time, even some of his most devoted believers were questioning the cost. The trigger was a rally, broadcast live, its flames spread instantly through every phone, screen, and diner TV in America. Standing beneath an enormous Trump 2024, Reclaim the Throne banner, he didn't just rile the crowd, he cracked the dam. We won't just take back our country, he roared, face red with fury, we'll defend it with everything we've got. If that means fighting in the streets, then so be it. We won't let the deep state or foreign scum tell us what to do anymore. Gasps, cheers, and camera flashes. But far from the cameras, in military bases, intelligence offices, and senior halls across the country, jaws dropped in stunned silence. Because the implications weren't just political, they were potentially catastrophic. The speech was replayed on every network within minutes. But on one obscure defense frequency, the words weren't entertainment. They were a red flag. General Terrence Rourke had served under presidents of both parties. A West Point man, veteran of 2 wars, he'd spent 35 years protecting the Constitution, not personalities. He watched the rally from a secure command room at the Pentagon and muttered just one word when Trump said the line about fighting in the streets, reckless. Meanwhile, in South Texas, Maria de León, a 62-year-old nurse, a lifelong Republican, and mother of 2, sat in her living room with her MAGA cap beside her Bible. She'd voted for Trump twice, believed in border security, economic revival, and American pride. But this was different. Fight in the streets, she whispered aloud. Against who? Her husband, Hector, a Vietnam vet with lung scarring and trembling hands, stood from his chair. Against us, Maria. They want war with their own people. That's what he's saying. But not everyone recoiled. In northern Idaho, in a bunker-turned compound, Patriot General Kyle Morrison live-streamed himself immediately after the speech. You heard the call, he shouted, holding an AR-15. This is what we trained for. This ain't just politics now, it's the final stand for freedom. If you ain't armed, you ain't ready. By nightfall, over 20 militia channels were echoing the call to action. Hashtags like #CivilWarReady, #RedLineCrossed, and #TrumpWar began trending on dark web forums, and Telegram groups shared marching plans with chilling clarity. But it was Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas, who stood up when it counted most. She didn't tweet a clapback. She called an emergency town hall. Standing in the middle of a packed gymnasium in Houston, she looked the crowd in the eye, pain evident on her face. My father taught me to love this country, even when it didn't love me back. I swore an oath to defend it. But tonight, I'm afraid, not for myself, but for all of us. Because when a former president tells Americans to fight in the streets, that's not freedom, that's chaos. That's war. And I know we're better than this. An old man in the crowd, Leonard Jackson, a retired trucker with a Marine Corps tattoo, stood up and raised his hand. Congresswoman, I voted for him too. But I didn't sign up to fight my neighbors. I want my grandkids to go to school, not to war zones. She nodded. That's what we're protecting. That's what real patriotism looks like. In D.C., chaos was escalating. Republicans were splitting, some backing Trump louder than ever, others whispering fears behind closed doors. Senate Minority Leader Carlton Marks, an old-school conservative with Nixon-era discipline, went on national TV. I voted for Donald Trump. I supported his policies. But what he said today endangers every American life. This isn't a call to save the country, it's a call to tear it apart. And I won't be part of it. The backlash was immediate. Trump's surrogates labeled Marks a traitor, a rhino, coward. But others, silent moderates and wavering independents, heard something else, permission to walk away. And then came the moment that changed everything. In the dead of night, a military convoy was spotted moving through Atlanta. Rumors flew: martial law, a coup, federal takeover. It wasn't any of that. It was a precaution, a quiet, coordinated effort by the Pentagon to safeguard key infrastructure as online threats surged. But in a volatile moment, perception becomes reality. By dawn, several cities reported MAGA-backed protests outside National Guard bases. Some were peaceful. Others carried rifles. In Michigan, a standoff began at Fort Granger when a self-declared militia tried to inspect the base's operations. Within minutes, a single shot rang out, no one knew from where, and chaos erupted. 2 men wounded. 1 soldier injured. It was enough. President Samantha Dorsey, elected after Biden chose not to seek re-election, took to the airwaves. Calm. Measured. Determined. This nation has survived civil wars, world wars, and deep divisions. We do not settle our disagreements with violence. Let me be clear, anyone threatening American citizens or military personnel will be treated not as patriots, but as domestic terrorists. It was the moment that forced the final line in the sand. Maria de León watched the speech with tears in her eyes. She turned to Hector. We believed in a man. But we forgot the mission. Hector placed his hand over hers. The mission is America. In a rural field in Oklahoma, Kyle Morrison shut off his stream and stared at the screen. He looked around at the handful of followers gathered in camouflage. One of them, a 19-year-old kid who'd never left his county, asked, "Sir, are we really gonna fight the army?" Kyle didn't answer. Because suddenly, even he wasn't sure. And back in D.C., Jasmine Crockett walked alone under the cherry blossoms near the Capitol. The wind was heavy, the air tense. A reporter rushed to her, breathless. "Congresswoman, do you believe this could lead to civil war?" She stopped walking. Looked the woman straight in the eye. "Only if we let it. But I believe in something stronger than Trump's fear or Morrison's guns. I believe in truth. In neighbors talking instead of shooting. In courage that chooses peace." "But will Americans listen?" the reporter pressed. She smiled faintly. They just did. Because across the country, something subtle was happening. Veterans organized peace marches. Pastors hosted bipartisan potlucks. Moms in MAGA hats and dads in BLM shirts stood outside schools together, watching their kids play. Not everyone turned away from the fire. But enough did. In the weeks that followed, Trump doubled down. But it didn't matter. Because the spell had broken. His words once caused riots. Now, they caused eye rolls. The movement that was once ironclad began to crack, not from the outside, but from the weight of its own madness. The lesson didn't come in thunder or bloodshed. It came in a whisper, that fear sells, but it cannot lead. That real strength is not in threatening war, but in rejecting it. That democracy isn't perfect, but it's worth saving, one act of courage at a time. And sometimes, the boldest thing a patriot can do is say, enough.